Good morning, everyone. This is Beverly with a daily word of inspiration, and we are continuing on with the lessons of the commandments in the New Testament. 74 times there are things in the New Testament that Jesus tells us to be. God tells us to be. 74 times to be sober, to be faithful, to be, there's a lot of things, and we're breaking down what are the things that God is telling us to be. And this is how we are to react to things, to do things, to behave in certain ways. So let's continue on. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13, it talks about being sober and hope. It says, "Wherefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober and hope, to the end of the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ." So we are told to be sober, we are told to gird up the loins of our mind and to be sober and hope until the end of the grace and the revelation of Jesus Christ. As believers, we are called to gird up our minds. We are to be ready for everything that may try to take over our Christian walk. We are to gather up our thoughts. The mind is a battlefield, and we are to be sober, and get in our mind, in our thoughts, to gather up our thoughts and to guard our thinking, and not to permit our minds to wander from the truth of God's word. We are to be sober and to pray. In 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7, it says, "But the end of all things is at hand. Be sober, watch unto prayer." So now there's two spots here where we are told to be sober. We are to be sober, and in our mind, we are to gird up our mind, the loins of our minds. We are to be sober and to hope, and we are to be sober and to pray. What does it mean to be sober? When you think sober, most people think alcohol. That person is not drunk. They're sober. They're not under the influence of alcohol. But the Greek word for sober in the Bible is nepho, nepho, meaning being mentally clear, self-controlled, and spiritually alert. This is what God is telling us. We are to be mentally clear, we are to have self-control, and we are to be spiritually alert. It's about having sound judgment, being disciplined in your spiritual life, and remaining vigilant against distractions and spiritual dangers that it calls. It's a call to live with clarity, focus, and readiness for Christ's return. This is God's teaching. This is a commandment by God to be sober, to be mentally clear, to be self-controlled, spiritually alert. We are to be disciplined in our spiritual life, that we are to remain vigilant against things that are going to come and try to cause distractions to pull us away from our spiritual relationship with God. We are to be sober, grave-tempered, sound in faith, charity, patience. This is talking to the aged men. It's in Titus chapter 2, verse 2. "But speak thou the things which become sound doctrine, that aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, and charity and patience." So we are to, as aged men in the church, aged brothers in the church, God is telling you, you need to be sober, clear-minded, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in love, and in patience. What does it mean for the word grave? He's telling that, that the men are to be grave. And what is the definition of that word grave? And it means that the older men in the church are to be dignified, honorable, and serious in demeanor, not foolish, not irresponsible, but they are to be honorable. They're supposed to be serious in demeanor, not in a somber way, but in a manner that shows maturity and respect and self-restraint. This is Christian character for the aged men in the church. What does it mean to be temperate? It means moderation, self-restraint. When you're young, sometimes you just have no self-restraint. Your judgments aren't the best. You don't always judge things in the right way. You jump to do things without thinking. But when you're older, you should have self-restraint and sobriety, especially in the contents of alcohol. We should not. I have brothers that, my brothers are in their 60s, when they get together, they drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol. I abstain from of alcohol. But I've watched my brothers who have no self-restraint in their drinking. And they get so intoxicated that they're profane babbling, and they can't even walk a straight line, and it's just no self-constraint at all. And we should, as we get older, this should not be. And especially it implies being clear-headed, not given to excess, and having control over one's physical and spiritual self, leading to sensible judgment and alertness. We should be able to control ourselves in any situation. Be sober and love your husbands and children. This is for the young women. The Bible's telling them to be sober, to love their husbands and their children. In Titus chapter 2, verse 4, that they may teach the young women. This is talking about the elders, which I will actually go and teach on. But it's teaching the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, and to love their children. Just because women have babies doesn't mean they always love them. That doesn't mean they always... having a child is not just putting food on the table and a roof over their head and taking them to school and, taking them to soccer practice. They are to love their children. Love is a strong word. And they are to love their husbands. And says to be sober-minded. This is to the young men. In Titus chapter 2, verse 6, young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded. We are to teach the young men to be sober-minded, to exhort them. What does exhort mean? What exhort means is it means to urge earnestly, to encourage strongly with instruction, to instruct them. The word comes from the Greek parakyleo, which means to call to one side and carries a sense of compelling or advising someone to live in a certain way. We are to teach the young men, to exhort them. I look at our world today, and I look at people raising kids. And when kids are young, you're there with them all the time. You're teaching them between right and wrong. You're teaching them you should do this and not that. But I've seen too many families, too many parents, when the kids become teenagers, they let them go. They just let them go. They let them do the things they want to do. They stop really instructing them and teaching them. Kids they think, well, they don't want to hear, or they're rebellious. They have an attitude. Kids today are like, whatever. I don't want to hear it. And that's the mentality of the young generation today. So parents they give up and they stop teaching. Because the kids say they gets rejected, but that doesn't mean we have to stop teaching. We are commanded by God to exhort the young generation, to encourage them strongly, to instruct them in the right ways. Keep teaching it. Even if they put that hand up and say, I don't want to hear it. Keep teaching it. Keep praying against that spirit of rebellion. We are commanded to teach the younger generation, the young men, to be sober-minded. Be in behavior of becoming saints. This is for the aged women. In Titus chapter 2, verse 3, the aged women likewise, that they be in honor as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teacher of good things. Aged women, you are to behave yourself as becometh holiness. What is holiness? It's a lifestyle before God. It's a life that is reverent, set apart from the world, and demonstrates a dignity of sacred demeanor through behavior, dress, and conversation. I see too many elder women today, it breaks my heart, trying to follow the trends of this foolish young generation. Grandmas, be grandmas. Be grandmothers. Teach the younger women to love their husbands. Teach them how to be good wives, how to love their children, to be good mothers. I see this elder generation dressing in ways that are so immoral. They're following the young fads of the younger generation. It's like grandmas, dressed like grandmas. I'm not saying walk around like old starababas, and that's a Polish word. Old starababas, like old ladies, like, oh, I'm an old lady, you know. But be modest in your dress. Dress with respect and reverence. Stop dyeing your hair blue and purple and orange. Come on, grandmas. Be examples to the young ladies. Teach the young women. Teach the young grandchildren, the young ladies, how to be godly, how to be separate from this world and don't follow the trends. You know, I'm not saying, like I said, you walk around like like you're feeble, but be modest, walk in dignity, walk in respect. I'm watching, these videos. I see there's these videos of grandmas that are vulgar in their language. My gosh, God help us. I am thankful that I lived in a generation with the way my grandparents were. I honored my grandparents. I respected my grandmother. She was a good woman, a godly woman, teaching good and godly things, good ways of living. We are to teach. What does it say? Teachers of good things. Teach the young generation the good things of God. So I'm going to end it here on the things. These are things that we are supposed to be doing. And a lot of it is being sober, being sober-minded, sober in our ways, being godly in our character, making right decisions. I hope this encourages you today. Tomorrow will be another lesson, continuing on things we're supposed to be. I love you. Be blessed and have a wonderful, wonderful day.